Morning, everyone. How are we? So, my name is Shahnaz, and we are in the week 3 of our series. So, sorry, it's my first time preaching, and I'm pretty nervous. We are in the week 3 of our series, Fast Food Forward. Is that correct? And what we are doing here is we are following the life of Joseph. Joseph is a character from the first book of Bible, Genesis. Yeah, and we are seeing the decisions he takes, the circumstances that he finds himself into, and how that relates to us, what we can learn from it. And that is, in week 1, Chris discussed with us, Chris explained how to deal with pride. In week 2, Rob discussed with us how to deal with temptation. And now we are in week 3. And today I'm going to share with you how to deal with harsh, unfair times. Yeah. And if we see Joseph's life so far, he was his father's favorite. His father indulged him, but he was hated by his brothers. He had dreams of power, but he's sold as a slave. Then, as a slave, he's exalted in the position of power. But again, he gets a temptation. He overcomes that temptation, but what happens? He's thrown into prison without any fault of his own. Yeah. And that's where we pick up the story today. So everything that's governed Joseph's life, it's the Murphy's Law. What does Murphy's Law say? Murphy's Law say that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. For example, if you're standing in a line waiting, your line would be the slowest. Or if you wash your car today, it will definitely rain. And it'll ruin all your effort. So everything that happens in Joseph's life, it has been Murphy's Law. And that's where we pick up our story today. When he's in the prison. But what does Bible say? Bible says, but the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. Now you might think, well, Joseph is in the prison, but we are not in the prison. We are here, right? We are here in the church listening to the word of God. We are so lucky if we think of it. But prison is just not the 4 walls that a judge sentences us to. Prison can be a frame of thinking that we subscribe to. For example, your prison can be spiritual, it can be relational, it can be financial. It could be the constant fear of the floodwaters ruining your property. It could be the high interest rates that leave nothing left over. Or it could be the pain or aches in your body. Sometimes circumstances in our life will feel like we are in a trial. We are in a personal little prison. And the principles that govern Joseph's life, that got him out of prison, that same principles will bless you and will get you out of your prison as well. We all relate to Joseph because Joseph suffered just like we do in our lives. Universally, all of us are gonna go through sufferings in our life. We all have that one person at some point of time who have hurt us badly. And that is why we relate to Joseph. Now, in our society, we call it becoming a victim. Joseph was really a victim. But what's amazing about Joseph is that he never acted like a victim. Bible says, so how Joseph expresses his pain. He says, for I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of Hebrews, and now I'm in prison. But I did nothing to deserve. He says, this translation of Bible, it uses the words kidnapped. He didn't willingly come to Egypt. A rope was put around his neck and waist, tied to a wagon, dragged to this land of Egypt. He might have kicked and cried, saying, "Brothers, please don't let this happen to me. Please help me." He would have replayed this hurt and rejection in his mind again and again and again in that prison. That is deep, painful stuff, deep, painful hurt that he's carrying. He has experienced major family trauma. For you, it might be your kids turning away from you, or your kids turning away from God, and you're worried about it. Or your spouse saying, "I don't love you anymore. I don't want to be married to you." Or you're hurt by your parents. This is really painful, and we carry it in our hearts, no matter where we go. But it gets worse for Joseph, because he was in a physical pain as well. Bible says they bruised his feet with shackles and placed his neck in an iron collar. That would be excruciatingly painful, living like that in that prison. Yeah. When we face these trials or sufferings of our own, how do you respond to suffering? I'll tell you how we typically respond. Typically, we get disappointed, which then leads to disillusionment, which then leads to depression. It's a very slippery slope, and we all might have been there at one point or another in our life. If I say about myself, there was a time when I have 2 kids. My second one is 2.5 years old. When she was born, she was a month old, and she was diagnosed with eczema. And it was severe eczema. Like there wasn't a part of her body which was not flared up. Her eyelids, back of ears, legs, hands, torso, everything. And she used to get very itchy, and we've seen doctors, pediatricians, and they were like, "Yeah, it's pretty bad right now. There's not much we can do about it, but she might outgrow it." And most kids outgrow it by the age of 5. I was extremely worried about her. And after listening to doctors, what we all do when we find ourselves sick is we start Googling it, or YouTube is our best friend, right? So I went on YouTube to see how to heal eczema, how to cure eczema, what to do, how to manage it. And what I was doing is not just watching those videos, but also reading the comments of the people. And the comments were pretty bad, like how people have been suffering for so long. They had eczema in the childhood, and they've got it all through their lives, how their life is miserable because of that. And I just kept reading it, and same way, I was disappointed, disillusioned, and I was moving towards depression. Could be my postpartum depression as well. And I used to cry constantly. Day, night, I used to cry. And my poor husband, Morris, he couldn't understand that why am I behaving so much just for eczema, which is so common. But all I could think of was how miserable Ilyana's life is going to be. She can't play. If she'll sweat, it'll flare up. She can't swim. She can't put on makeup. What will happen of her? I was thinking of the worst, and not just relying on God in any way whatsoever. And I wasn't even talking to anyone, just keeping it in my heart and crying. When I started talking to my mom and my mom-in-law, I told them about what has happened, what his doctors told us. They both told me, just pray about it. Like, mother's prayers are very powerful, and you pray about it. And when I started praying, I decided I will only see videos on YouTube that are of people, of healing testimonies of people from eczema. And mind you, there were multiple videos, more than 100 videos of how to manage your eczema, but only 2 videos for the people who shared their testimonies, how to heal from that they got healed from eczema, or their kids got healed from eczema. And I started replaying them again and again and again. And in one of the videos, one night, the family just went to prayer, and in the morning, the kid was healed, like completely healed. 7 years of eczema, and the baby was healed. And I thought maybe in the morning my Ileana would be healed as well. But morning came and no change. But then I also learned while I was watching these healing videos that it doesn't happen overnight. For some people, yes, it can. But for majority of us, it's a process. It takes time. And it did take time. Ileana is 2.5 years old now. And she's all cured. She's completely fine. And at that moment in time, I decided that if and when, obviously Ileana will get healed. I had that faith. But when she gets healed, I will never say that she has outgrown her eczema, what doctors told me, but I will always say that she's healed by Jesus Christ. She's healed by the power of Lord. And she is healed by the power of Lord, but it took time. It is a process. So we all have a choice. In our moments of suffering, we have a choice. Either you will choose to push God away or to push into God even more. And that is the key. Now, from the outset, Joseph's life, he's in a total mess. He's been without trial, he's been put in jail, and he will stay in jail in the best years of his life. He'll probably never have kids or get married, and he will die in this Egyptian hole. That is what we are looking at right now. But there's something else that's going on. Let's look at it from God's perspective. God always has a plan for your pain, and it involves some kind of test. Now, God is not the one who causes this pain. It's Satan intending it for evil, but God will use it to test your faith. Bible says they bruised his feet with shackles and placed his neck in an iron collar. Until the time came to fulfill his dreams, the Lord tested Joseph's character. He tested Joseph's character. The trial of Joseph, it was external, but his test was internal. Just like you refine a metal with the fire, a person is refined with the fires of life. When we see Joseph in the week 1, he's a young boy of 17 years. He's boastful, full of pride. He's sharing his dreams of power with others. His father indulged him. Success came easy to him. But this boy, who's sold as a slave and he's now a prisoner, there's not an ounce of pride in him. He's humbled now. Do you know how you passed your test? Last week was probably a test for you. The traffic jam was a test. Your unexpected results on your blood report was a test. That delay in your promotion, that was a test. Or a fight with a colleague of yours, that was a test. Do you know how you passed your test? Lord is all about developing something supernatural in us. He wants to develop us in the likeness of his Son, Jesus Christ. He's more concerned about our character than our comfort. Now, God is not the one who creates these sufferings, who causes us to suffer, but he will use all the trials of the life to test us. And how will you pass your test? Well, the same principles that govern Joseph's life, those same principles will help us to unlock our prison doors, get out of our sufferings. Number 1 is, always remember that God's presence is with you and he's working for you. God's presence is with you and he's working for you. God is sovereign over all. His hand is over everything. Bible says for Joseph, Lord was with him and he showed him kindness and grabbed him favor in the eyes of prison warden. Why did God do it? Because Joseph was faithful in little things. He was faithful in little things, and we have seen it throughout his life journey so far. You want to get promoted in life? Be faithful in little things. Be like Joseph. Show up on time. Finish your task. Don't complain. Don't stand in a corner with others and gossip. You give me a task and I will do it in the best possible way. That was Joseph's attitude. If he was thrown as a prisoner, he decided to be the best possible prisoner that they have ever seen. Typically, what happens when tragedy strikes us, we start saying, Lord, where are you? But in the good times, we say, Lord's hand is all over this place. He's so gracious. Well, Lord is with you, even in the good times or in the bad times. You might feel totally alone, but Lord is still with you. I encourage you to turn to the person next to you and say, God is still with you. If you're watching us online, I encourage you to type in the comment section, God is still with me. Even now, I'm not saying that Joseph never wrestled with doubt. I mean, look at his life. He felt abandoned, and he probably have doubted Lord as well. Even Jesus, when he was on the cross, he said, Father, in your hands, I commit my spirit. And right before that, he said, why, God, why? I can ask why. God, show me why if you want to. But even if you don't, I trust you still. Jesus said, I will never leave you or forsake you. And that is the thing that is the reality that we need to hang on to. We have to remember that God is still with us, no matter what circumstances we are in. We can really function within our dysfunction. Second principle that God chose us to unlock his prison door was that he chose to serve others. First was that remember that God is with you and he's working for you. And second is that choose to serve others. When we are sad, disappointed, forgotten, stabbed in the back, it's so tempting to focus on me. This is what the world wants, to be self-seeking and self-satisfying. It's time for me to focus on me. But this is the type of thinking that puts us into an even deeper pit. It keeps us from trusting God and trusting people. It keeps us plotting revenges, and it keeps us feeling sorry for ourselves, and slowly it poisons our mind. Choosing to serve others, it is God's antidote. Bible says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. So what happens in the prison now is that Pharaoh's chief winemaker and chief baker, he's angry with them, and they are thrown in the same prison as Joseph. And because Joseph has been put in charge of that prison, God has exalted him even in the prison. So he's given the responsibility to take care of these two important people, the chief cupbearer and chief baker. So one morning he goes to them and he sees that they are sitting there sad, that he can see that they are pretty upset. And why were they upset was that they had dreams that were unsettling, and they didn't know what those dreams mean. So when Joseph sees them, he asks them, what happened? Why do you look so sad? What happened? Are you all right? He asks them the reason why they are upset. Now, if we think of a prison, it would be a really sad place, right? Everybody would be sitting there with long faces. That's what I assume. And Joseph himself is a victim of his circumstances. But he did not act like a victim. What he's doing here is he's being a friend and a counselor. Yeah. And this is the attitude that got him promoted that got him promoted in the first place. Even Jesus, when he was on cross, if we add all of us who are sitting here, if we add all of our sufferings, our problems, our issues, if we sum it all up, it cannot still match the suffering that Jesus was facing on that cross. But what was he doing still? He was serving others even on the cross. He exalted 2 thieves with him to heaven, and he made a provision for his mom. He asked John to take care of his mom when he's gone. He is still serving others, even in his immense, immense suffering. Whatever circumstances you are in right now, God has sent you to be a friend to somebody. You need to trust God that He is with you. He is working for you, and keep serving others. I repeat again, the first 2 principles that unlock the doors for Joseph and that will unlock for you is trust that God is working for you and keep serving others. Trust God and serve others. Last principle is see and seize God-given opportunities. Look at the providence of God. Joseph is in the jail, and in the same jail, two of the important people of Pharaoh, who was the most important person in Egypt, those 2 people are thrown in the same jail as Joseph. What a coincidence. Only God can orchestrate such events. It doesn't look that way, but God is working that way. He is providing us opportunities. And because Joseph was not blinded by self-pity, and he had an internal perspective, he was able to not only see that opportunity, but also seize it. God brings opportunities in our lives as well, sometimes in the form of people to love. Now, if we are looking at the wrong place, it's so easy to miss it. Sometimes we are feeling so sorry for ourselves, or angry at God, or angry at people, that we can easily miss those opportunities. But Joseph didn't miss it. He asked those 2 men, why are they sad? What happened? What's wrong? He's tenderly caring and loving for them. And what do they say? They said, we both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean. Interpreting dreams is God's business, Joseph replied. Go ahead and tell me your dreams. Interpreting dreams is God's business. Joseph had a gift of interpreting dreams. Now, if we read about the dreams, so the interpretation of those 2 dreams was that winemaker, after 3 days, he was gonna get restored to his position, back to that prominent position, and the chief baker that was there, he was gonna get executed. So only half of those interpretations were favorable for these men. So question for Joseph is now, God has given him the gift to interpret the dreams, but is he really going to give the full interpretation to these 2 men? Because last time he talked about his dreams, he was sold as a slave. And last time he did what was right in the eyes of God by running away from Potiphar's wife, he was thrown in the prison. So will he still follow what God wants him to? Well, he did. His act of sharing God's whole counsel shows that he still chose integrity over compromise. What Rob shared last week. He chose integrity over compromise. Potiphar's wife stole his garment, but she could not steal his fear of God, his passion for God. And we should not let any circumstances in our life, no matter how bad it is, steal our fear and our passion for God. God's opportunities in our lives will come usually in small, selfless packages, and we grab them by simple acts of obedience. if we are too distracted looking for something big and flashy, we might miss it. But it's the small selfless packages. And we grab them by saying yes to an act of kindness or a generosity, by calling someone when Lord puts in your heart to call, listening to someone who needs to be heard, and by praying when we feel burdened to pray. And if we choose to do these three things, remember that God is with you and He is working for you. Number 2, that we choose to serve others. And number 3, that we see and seize the opportunities. We can get out of our trials, our prisons, our circumstances. Now, all this didn't happen for Joseph overnight. Bible says it took 2 more years for Joseph to get out of the prison. But God never stopped working in his story, and He will never stop working in yours. He will take your trials and He will give you a testimony. You know, when we chat on Messenger, like with you're chatting with your text messaging your friend, and you send a message and the other person is typing, and on the top it says typing, 3 dots, and those dots are dancing. And that means that the other person is still typing, right? Similarly, author of life, he's still typing. He's still typing the reply to your prayers. He's not done with you. Jesus says He will never leave us nor forsake us. And we need to hang on to that reality. Our Lord is not done with us. He is with us, working for us. And we need to remember that. I would like to end by praying. Lord, in your hands, we give all our pain and the suffering, Lord. Lord, in your hands we give it. Lord, it's so hard sometimes that we can't even stand that pain, Lord. Lord, but we trust that you're working for us. You're working for us, Lord, and we will continue to be a blessing to others. We'll continue to try to be a blessing to others, Lord. And I believe that even in this pain and in this hurt, Lord, you are trying to create something new in my life, something supernatural in my life, Lord. Lord, in your hands, we give this pain, these trials, these circumstances in our life, and believe that you're working for us. Amen. Thank you.
How good was that? The second time she's ever shared. Well, third time if you encounter her testimony here. Absolutely fantastic, Shaz. I got so much out of that. I've written plenty of notes. What are some of the things that I picked up as far as like Joseph was a victim? And she shared her notes to me a couple of weeks ago, and I was reading through them, and I was excited to read them and very excited to listen to her present them. It was great. But Joseph was a victim, but he never acted like one. I love that. I think I act like a victim a lot. I host a lot of pity parties. You're all welcome to come and join me when I do. Disappointment leads to disillusionment. Disillusionment leads to depression. It's a slippery slope and you keep going down. We have a choice to either push God away or push into Him. Choosing to serve others is God's antidote. How good is that? Yeah, so fantastic. And I love that last one. The author of life is still typing. That's so good. That is so good. I don't know what it is that your journey looks like at the moment, but regardless of what it is, the author of life is still typing. He's still working in your life. He's still working on your life. And Romans 8:28 says that God works all things together for good for those that love God. The author of life is still typing. Hey, we have got you out a little bit early this morning, which is good. No one's going to be upset about that. Hey, so do this. Head out, grab a tea or coffee. There's bread out there. If you need bread, grab bread, load up on bread, load up on tea, load up on coffee, load up on conversations before lunch. So head out and look forward to seeing you guys next week as we continue the story of the right foot forward.